most dangerous weapon system in the Middle East, more than likely an Israeli cab. And there's a story about a poor farmer using his horse and old wagon to bring his wares to market. And as he approached the next block, careening around the corner was an Israeli taxi cab that carelessly plowed into him, upset everything. It was a mess. And a few months later, it ends up in front of a magistrate where the farmer is suing for his losses. And the judge turns to the farmer and says, "Ezeh chutzpah, I don't get it. You see, you're claiming all of these terrible injuries that you had after the accident, but there was a police report, and the officer on the scene reported that you told him that you were absolutely okay. How is it possible that you could go from absolutely okay to filing for all of these claims of injury?" And the farmer says, "Your Honor, you have to understand the circumstances, because when the officer came on the scene, he saw my horse writhing in pain, pinned against the wall. So he took out his revolver and he shot my horse. There was a dog that was pinned underneath the wheel of my cart, and he shot the dog. When he came to me, I said, 'Officer, I'm okay.'" How we determine if we're okay or not impacts our wellness, our health, and our ability to influence the people around us. Unfortunately, speaking of okay, unfortunately, we're trained from very, very young in the sentinel emotive network of our brain to become incarcerated in fears, in angers, in pain. For those of you who weren't here in my earlier presentation, just very quickly, the three words that we use: power, peace, purpose, to demonstrate that we're more than okay, and that we can bring in this amazing light. And it doesn't matter if you call it chi, ki, prana, tanagadalam, neshama, light, power, that you could bring in this amazing power and push out pain, fear, and anger. And the brilliance of this program is accredited to the children that we've learned it from, starting from our daughter, Aleh Shalom, who at age 2 would tell the docs at UCLA, "No medication today, please," and tell the 5-year-old children not to cry. A number of years later, I found myself directing a cancer camp, came into this horrific scene. A child is being pinned down by 2 nurses, and he's screaming something awful. And I just told the nurses, "Give me 5 minutes." The nurses were happy to leave. The little boy looked at me like I was the governor. I just stayed his execution. And I said to this child, "You know, I'm a black belt, which doesn't mean anything to a little kid. It's a wow. Do you want me to teach you some karate?" I asked him, and he almost jumped off the table. I explained to him the martial arts you learn, that pain is a message you don't have to listen to. You could breathe in this amazing chi and push out the pain. Watch me. And 5 minutes later, we're doing a simple Tai Chi breathing exercise. And 20 minutes later, they pulled out the needle, and he looked up at the nurse and he said, "Did you do it yet?" And that's when Kids Kicking Cancer was born. So we started with 10 children in Children's Hospital of Michigan. That was in 1999. And this past year, we saw over 3,500 children in 45 hospitals in 4 countries. When the rabbi invited me to come here to speak, I was so honored. Apparently you're running out of speakers. But I was so honored, but I told him I have an agenda. I'd love to come to present, but I'd love to make South Africa our 5th country. Let me explain to you the power of purpose. Just 2 hours ago, Daniel Rock stood at the stage downstairs. Child who had gone through significant pain and discomfort with his chemotherapy. A friend of a friend. We Skype with children all over the world where we don't yet have programs. So Daniel and I were Skyping together. How to breathe in the light and blow out the darkness and use our meditative techniques, and it's martial arts, so it's cool. But I told Daniel, I have an agenda. That is, when I come to South Africa, you're going to be my first teacher. And he was. It was indescribable. But the importance of allowing the children to know that they have purpose is part of the therapy. I was giving a class at Pepperdine Graduate School of Psychology, located on the Pacific Ocean in Malibu, California. Unfortunately, I was doing it as a video conference. I was sitting in Detroit. There was only a difference of about 50 degrees between where I was and where I was presenting to. And I was talking about the psychology of nociceptive pain. I find if you use a lot of big words, they let you teach in graduate schools. And then I'm talking about how we respond to pain of needles, trypanophobia. How the children actually accept the discomfort and then push it out the other direction. And on the bottom of the conference, the graduate student, Jessica, blogs to me and says, you know what? I need that. I'm supposed to go to South America for my thesis. I need all of these inoculations. I can't do this. I literally faint when I see a needle. I need to know how to do this. It's destroying my life. So I stopped the class. I said, Jessica, let me introduce you to Desi Smith. Desi's one of our sickle cell patients, and sickle cell is becoming a much more significant issue here in South Africa as migrations from Northern Africa are implicating greater numbers of children in the hospitals having sickle cell crisis. And Desi has to go through monthly infusions of sickle cell medicines. She's almost 12 years old. Every monthly experience is worse than the next, worse than the last. And trauma builds up in the brain, and it gets even bigger and bigger and bigger. And we do functional MRIs to evidence the long-term impact on the brains of adults who went through childhood disease and pain and fear and anger. The very first time that we meditated, when we intervened with Desi in the clinic, after 15 minutes of meditation, she got so calm that her blood flowed 150% faster. The nurses were running because they're running to get more tubes to collect her blood. They couldn't believe it. So I said to Jessica, let me teach you Desi's meditation, which I did. And then I said to her, you know, Desi is very, very medically complex. If this works for you, could you send me an email? But write it to Desi and let her know that it helped you. It'll mean a lot to her. 3 days later, I received this amazing email. Dear Desi, you don't know me, but Rabbi G was teaching our course at Pepperdine. And I shared with him that I can't take needles and it's destroying my life. He taught me your meditation. And I want you to know, not only was I able to get my shots, but I ended up crying, but they weren't tears of pain. They were tears of joy. Because Desi, you changed my life. I sent that email to Desi's mom. 2 hours later, I get an email back. Desi's been walking around the house all morning saying, I really am a martial artist. I really am teaching the world. And the beauty of that circle, there wasn't one element which was disingenuous. Allowing Desi to become a teacher creates a greater control over her pain threshold. Allowing Jessica to learn from Desi changed her life. And our vision is to replicate that circle 1,000,000 times a day. Using the internet, using the tools that we're working on developing, and spreading this from country to country and across continents. Because no one teaches this better than the children of our hero circle. So we started having children in our Kids Kicking Cancer program teach other children with pain, and so we created this whole hero circle. And as I said earlier, we started bringing our children to adults. We said if we could teach kids, we could teach adults. We'll just talk slower. And this is a circle that's growing across the globe. But those 3 words, power, peace, purpose, are essential for every one of us here. And God willing, after we begin a program here, and my email's up and around, and anybody who's interested in getting involved, unabashedly, we're looking for that leadership to grow out of South Africa as well. But as we continue to bring this around the world and bring more children, and God willing, the next time I'm here, we're going to go forward, and there'll be 20 kids across the stage teaching how to breathe in the light and blow out the darkness. So before we begin, I'd like to show you a quick video. It's a video that I enjoy because it features me heavily, made by the Today Show, that describes a little bit the power of the program.
Get ready to meet some remarkable kids, strong, brave, spirited, all getting their health back through an innovative program that's teaching them to breathe in the light, blow out the dark, keep attacks at bay. ABC's Juju Chang has their inspiring story.
And 1, 2.
This little guy is 6-year-old Gabe Adler. The big guy, Richard Plowden, 5-time world champion martial artist. A face-off between student and master. But Richard's not just teaching Gabe how to fight. Here at Michigan's Beaumont Children's Hospital, he's teaching kids who are in the fight of their lives.
I believe in the power of the martial arts and the power of the black belt. We teach them some kicks, some punches, but the main thing is martial arts therapy, meditation, breathing techniques to help them through their diagnosis. What are we? Powerful martial arts. Powerful martial arts.
These kids are either patients in the cancer ward or have a sibling there. Together, they're using this ancient art in their epic battle to kick cancer. It's the brainchild of an unlikely action hero, a mild-mannered Orthodox rabbi, Elimelech Goldberg, or Rabbi G, who just happens to be a black belt himself. After losing his own daughter, Sarah, to leukemia, Rabbi G wanted to help others who were struggling through cancer treatments.
I explained to this little boy, in the martial arts you learn that pain is a message you don't have to listen to. You could breathe in this amazing energy, this chi, and push out the pain. And 5 minutes later, this boy was doing a simple Tai Chi breathing technique. 20 minutes later, they pulled out the needle, and the boy looked up at the nurse and said, "Did you do it yet?" And that's when Kids Kicking Cancer was born.
1, 2, 3, 4. Luca Aversa was diagnosed with cancer at 4 months old. Today he's 7, and by using his martial arts training, he's gone from having to be held down for treatments to managing it all on his own.
It makes pain go away.
He's informed several nurses on several occasions that he's a big boy and he's a martial artist and he will do it all by himself.
Amber Madigan's mom, Michelle, says after a recent surgery, her 12-year-old daughter's mental toughness surprised even a seasoned recovery room nurse.
They noticed that she started to do the breathing on her own and started calming herself down. And she said she's been in there for 20 years and never saw anyone take that type of power in their own hands.
Whose body is it?
The martial arts teach these kids that even though their bodies might feel weak, their minds can still be strong.
Here's a process they believe in. Here's a time in their lives when they're anything but powerful. And we explain to them, you can be powerful, you are powerful, and you're teaching, you're very, very powerful.
It's a lesson Rabbi G hopes they'll use even after they triumph over their illness. And on this day, the students have become teachers, showing this standing room only crowd of adult cancer patients and their families the secrets to the 3 Ps. For Good Morning America, Juju Chang, ABC News, New York.
What a difference this organization is making, helping more than 5,000 kids all over the world.
Thank you, thank you. That was actually the Good Morning America piece, not the Today Show, but doesn't matter. We've been in Early Show, all of these places. I was featured in People magazine, believe it or not. Same year that I was on the cover of On Me. I think I'm the only person in the world ever to be in On Me and People in the same year. But it's really not about me. I'm just the tall, good-looking figure in front of the organization. It's the children who get this power. And it's meant a lot to us. After we were in People magazine, got an email from a woman who wrote in the subject line, "You probably don't remember me." And then she goes on to describe that she was our nurse who took care of her daughter both at Cedars-Sinai and then later at UCLA. And she writes, "For the last 31 years, I've been talking about your daughter." And for us to know that this was created by our sweet little child, such incredible impact on our lives. We were blessed with a grant from Ford Motor Company to bring 45 of our martial arts therapists, the leaders from across the globe, together this past May. And Ruthie and I were sitting there, all these people walking in literally from all over the world with their kids kicking cancer paraphernalia. And we just looked at each other and started crying. And this is what I told the docs when I did the grand rounds at Johannesburg General Hospital, because doctors are trained to heal, but they're not very well trained when they can't heal. And explaining the therapy of giving a power to purpose. And the power of purpose is so extraordinary, is so important, that whenever I go and speak, and even though I left the active rabbinate, my greatest joy in life is to hear myself speak. So I do it all over the place. And to explain how to deal in the hospice world with the power of purpose is so very important. There's a woman from our community, when I used to play Rabbi, who had diabetic neuropathy, Bunny Kelman. She was in her early 70s. Her leg became gangrenous, and she needed to have an amputation to save her life. And that I thought was going to happen. I'm on the way traveling to the airport to go who knows where, and I got a call from Robert, her son. "You have to talk to Mom. She's refusing to sign. She doesn't want to be a burden. She doesn't want to lose her independence. She doesn't want to live like this. She's refusing to sign. She's going to die." So I quickly turned the car around, zoomed to the hospital, knew that I really had to catch that flight. So I stood by Bunny and I said, "Bunny, your children and your grandchildren are in the waiting room. You spent your whole life dedicating yourself and sacrificing to send them to day schools, to teach them what it means to be a Jew. Right now, Bunny, is your most teachable moment because they're watching you. How you respond will inform how they teach your children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren how to respond to their lives. Right now is your most teachable moment. You breathe in the light, and blow out the darkness of this fear and this challenge. And you put a smile on your face and say, Baruch Hashem. Those are the two Korean terms we taught in the last class. That everything is coming through us from Hashem. We could do this. You put that sparkle back in your eyes and you say, Baruch Hashem, we're going to do this. That's what they're going to teach to generations to come. Right now is your most teachable moment. That sparkle came back to her eyes, and she looks at me, and she winked. We do that in Detroit. And she says, Rabbi, I got it. I didn't have time to stop at the family. But 10 minutes later, I got a call from Robert. Where'd you put my mom? This is not the same lady. 180 degrees different. She's smiling. She's confident. She's saying, Baruch Hashem. Not only did it save her life, but she was able to go to many smachot, and she had great quality those years, the additional 9 years that she had. But I didn't do anything. I just let her know the truth. When we recognize that the world around us, our children, our grandchildren, our family, our friends, our spouses, our partners, that they're learning from how we respond to our lives, we change theirs. There isn't anyone sitting in this room who's not a teacher. And finding those teachable moments to respond to this world without Baruch Hashem, knowing that, yes, you're getting attacked because this is not working right and the kids are not listening and et cetera, and the finances are not great, and how are we going to do this, and how are we going to do that, and what if this happens, and those are the natural responses to life. No one can blame you for that. But when you could actually breathe in this inner light, and it's not by accident that the word for breath, nishima, is the same as nishama, your soul. When you could pull in that energy and that light and blow out the darkness, it changes everything. And very quickly, because we donated 2 hours to this before, but just very quickly, use the breath as a wave. Preferably breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth, as I told you earlier. If that doesn't work for you, choose any orifice you'd like. But use the breath to lift up your body. So breathing in, you're lifting up your body, and hold that for 3 seconds, and then in the exhale, and when there's no more air left, the very end, and that's when to say those two Korean words, Baruch Hashem, which means that no matter what we have in our lives, we could respond with greatness. And this brings us to the world of pain and the challenges that pain represent. Nothing gets our attention in our brain more than pain. But we can actually transcend that. The reason that pain gets your attention, because pain in the brain translates as necrosis, which means something is dying inside. I had a friend, I went to Yeshivat Hesder, Gush Etzion, before the 73 war. I have a friend who was in a tank on the Golan Heights when the war broke out. He was surrounded by 12 tanks. He was a well-awarded gunner. But early in the battle, because they were so outnumbered, his tank got hit with one of those anti-tank missiles. But in order to survive, he had to keep shooting and shooting and shooting. 20 minutes later, they were able to pull back. And that's when he found out, when he realized, because he was overwhelmed with pain, that's when he realized that his legs had been mangled by that first anti-tank shell. But for the 20 minutes that his brain was saying survive, that was the higher message. It didn't have time for the pain. But the messages that we accept in our brain really are very much in our control. It's not easy when it's that level of intensity. But I tell the kids all the time, if you stubbed your toe, boom, you become your toe. You have to call a tow truck. Kids think I'm funny, but not over 5 years old. But if you're in a bank and you stubbed your toe because somebody's in there shooting with an AK-47 and you're diving for cover, you don't even know that your toe hurts. Because the messages in your brain, and this is, by the way, an important key in martial arts, try not to get hit by assault weapons, because the messages in your brain are so profound that they will decide, thank you, what you need to hear, think, and feel. So that was a great program. So in Detroit, they started bringing AK-47s into the emergency room in the hospital. I said, no, that's not a good idea. But you know what? We are all stubbing our toes in life. We all have stuff. With Daniel, when he was having that very difficult upper GI pain, so what we did was we created a fist. He began to view, and we asked the children, what color is your pain? It's interesting, children who have inflammatory disease will often describe it as red. Sometimes kids will describe it as black. The martial arts is very focused on imagery. Before we break a board or a brick, you actually have to see it break. If in your mind you see your hand breaking, not a good sign. Don't do it. So 3 weeks ago, I was in a suburb of Johannesburg called Renana. And we had this beautiful concert. And an 8-year-old girl came on the stage. This is a child who lives in Rehovot. The school turned to us because 2 of their children have been diagnosed with really untreatable cancers. One of them was too sick to come. The other little girl participated. And she taught all 168 people who were there how to breathe in the light and blow out the darkness. Because the whole school was falling apart. Having 2 children in a small school, separately being diagnosed with really bad stuff, the principal, the teachers, they were falling apart. We sent our martial arts therapists to their homes, and they began to draw their darkness. And it was so informative what they described their darkness as. Their fears, their issues in the ICU, etc. And then we hold up that target. We ask them to imagine breaking through their darkness. Then we teach them how to use their breath to pull in that light and actually break through it. And they break through that target. And then we brought them to every single one of the classes where a 7- and 8-year-old girl are teaching their classmates that everybody's got stuff. But no matter what we face in our lives, we could breathe in the light and break through this darkness. The principal said it changed the whole school. And when Rivki presented to the entire auditorium in Renana, she didn't want to leave. She's a smart cookie. She knows what's going on in her life. But for her to have that night that gave purpose to what she's going through, changed her and her family and the people around her. But we all have stuff. We all have pain. Sometimes it's physical pain. And so if a person, let's say, has back pain or neck pain or GI pain, actually using your mind to create a circle through the pain is extraordinarily therapeutic. And we've published our pain scores in peer-reviewed medical journals. They're very impressive. You know why? Because the kids believe in the power of karate. The moment we get them to know they have this power, it changes their brains. We used to teach in medical school, there's a pain center in the brain. It's an old Descartesian model. Might be putting Descartes before the horse. But when it comes to that model, it's wrong. Today, using neural imagery, we could see there's a whole neural matrix. And if a person is afraid or angry, there's no purpose to their pain, the exponential power of that pain goes up. Allowing the children know that you can take control is such an effective tool, and you could do it no matter where your pain is. Pain is like this staccato message, boom, boom, boom. When you use your breath to literally make that circle through the pain, imagine, wow, this is a great service. Just show me the one where they put the vodka inside with the tea, thank you. Wow. Is a piece of pizza? No, I'm sorry. Thank you very much. The ability to image a particular pain. Now, there are two types of humans, those people who have back pain and those people who will have back pain, right? Just imagine your pain as being like a dark fist. Put a color on it. And then you can close your eyes and imagine you're breathing from below the pain, but not just air. Daniel told us in the previous session, we don't breathe in air, we breathe in light. And imagine that light is poking a hole through the dark fist. So you have this beautiful color of light, whatever you'd like it to be, going through the pain, and then as you breathe out, actually seeing that color, that pain leave you. And keep making that circle through the pain. Try it. Whether you have pain in your neck or your back or your stomach or your head, choose the darkest parts of that pain. Let's say if your person has a very bad headache. And imagine they're breathing in this light, image the pain, poke a hole in it, and as you breathe out, breathe that little piece of pain out. Then look for the next place where the pain is affecting you. And the next place, do the breathing for 10 minutes. Most of the people that we've trained describe it as having a significant impact on their pain. Because pain grabs us, it defines us. I give a course in medical school called the Ontology of Oncology. Ontology is the sense of self, oncology is cancer. We become defined by disease, we become defined by pain, we become defined by anger, and it becomes us, and we become it, and then we're stuck. But there's another perception, and that's called power, peace, purpose. To realize that we have this incredible inner energy, and every challenge in our life is an opportunity. That's power, peace, purpose. There was a young lady I was quite friendly with because her family had gone through some significant tragedies. And this young lady lived in Chicago. She went to seminary in Israel. And unfortunately, she started to get headaches. And after scans, she came home to a very, very bad brain tumor. I called up her mom. Her dad had been a physiatrist colleague of mine. And I said, I want to teach Chaya how to do our breath work. She said, Rabbi, gee, I've already tried that. She's not interested. I said, no. Tell Chaya that we have a lot of kids with brain tumors. If she could learn how to do this, she can help others. 5 minutes later, Chaya called me. And she said, Rabbi G, could you come to Chicago to teach me how to do this? I need to teach other children. So I came to Chicago, and she did great with the meditation. Actually helped her pain significantly. Then she had surgery, and after surgery, she had radiation. Unfortunately, her tumor came back 150% after the radiation. So I came back to Chicago. And I was sitting with Chaya, and I'm videotaping her because she's teaching the world, and she's sitting with this kerchief on her head. And she said, Rabbi G, they told me that if you kept your hair in some rubber bands, it would work to keep your hair. And it really worked. Could I show you? And I said, sure. And she whips her kerchief off her head, and there are 12 hairs held together in a rubber band in the middle of her bald head. She said, you see, it really works. So I said to her, Chaya, could you could you teach other people how to deal with tsaras, how to deal with the real troubling things in life? And for the first time, this beautiful young lady looked uncomfortable, and she said, you know, I really can't. I haven't had any tsaras. Even this brain tumor is only there to help me to grow. I have a rule, I don't cry in front of the children. So I excuse myself to make a phone call. There's a Hasidic story of Rav Zusha. She didn't know the story. I was in the middle of a Hasidic story with an 18-year-old girl who came back from seminary with a brain tumor. But everyone has challenges. Absolutely everyone. And what happens is, in our world of challenge, it becomes about us. You know, the guy who goes to Rabbi and says, Rabbi, I have a problem with my daughter. And the Rabbi uniquely says to him, you really mean to say your daughter has a problem and you want to help her, right? What happens is, our brains get triggered by our fears, by our memories, by the stressors in our lives, and becomes about us. And then we're not effective because the stressors stop us from being everything that we can be. The moment you decide to breathe in the light and blow out the darkness, that's when you become powerful. So I teach Walmart executives. Is there a Walmart in South Africa? No. There's a big company. I teach Walmart executives that when the manager's in the hall, the manager's seeing one of the associates who's just not getting it, they're getting triggered. It's about them. Because at 5 years old, they didn't think anybody liked them. At 12 years old, they didn't feel respected. At 19 years old, they didn't think they were going to make it. So when that person's in your face, it becomes about you. The moment you could actually interrupt those stressors and breathe in the light, it changes who you are and gives you the ability to put a smile on your face and pull that associate towards you, and then you become a leader. You become a teacher. And if you think about that in your lives, in my book I have a whole chapter. The only difference between martial and marital is where you put the I. We become attacked. The triggers in our brain, in our relationship, our children, they're not going to listen to us. Our teachers who walk into classrooms and need to raise their voice to control the children are recognizing that the old messages are still occupying their thoughts. All of life is how we frame these moments, and the ability to bring in that light and blow out that darkness is what has allowed us as a nation to survive and to be great. And when we do that, we become teachers to our children, to our spouses, to the world around us. It stops being about me. It's not about I have a problem. This person has a problem. Let me use my light to illuminate them. And you put on that martial arts face that looks like this, and you pull them towards you because that's powerful. Pushes weakness. I'll end with one story of a historical note. Whenever the Nazis wanted to show that they were the superior race, they specifically targeted our faith. And they targeted our faith leaders. And there's a story that takes place with the Blucher Rebbe who had traveled with his Hasidim. If you've ever been in the barracks in Auschwitz, they literally 1,000 people to a barracks. And the room is filled with his Hasidim. And the guard recognized, figured out who the Rebbe was. And so he brought over the Rebbe, and I remind you that they had not eaten almost anything in 5 days. And the guard takes out of his pocket a stick of margarine, and he holds it in front of the Rebbe, and he says, Rebbe, would you like this? You need to understand that calories are life. So the Rebbe's eyes lit up, and he says, yes, yes, please. So the guard extended his hand, a present for you. And just as the Rebbe is about to grab the margarine, the sadistic Nazi allowed the margarine to go on the ground, and he stomped his muddy boot on it and stepped back. The Rebbe looked at the guard, and he looked at the margarine, he looked at his Hasidim, he looked down on the ground, and to the horror of every Chassid in that room, the Rebbe dove to the floor and began to rip up his buttons to pick up that piece of margarine. At that moment, the guard had destroyed 1,000 Jews in a single second. The guard ran out to get the commandant to show the defeat of this inferior race. And the Rebbe worked feverishly to grab any piece of margarine he could. And then he stood up. And then he began to tear his shirt. And he said, Yidden, do you realize a great miracle? It's the 8th night of Hanukkah. Since our deportation, we haven't had a chance to light a menorah. God gave us a menorah. And when the guard walked in with the commandant to show the defeat of the Jewish people, there was this most magnificent menorah that was burning, and 1,000 voices singing Mo Su Yeshuasi. No matter what we face in our lives, we can find light in the darkness. We all have challenges. To breathe in this light and to blow out the darkness changes our world. And that, my friends, is power, peace, purpose. Thank you very much.